To understand the history of Norway, you must understand its geographical position and the history of the whole of Scandinavia. Scandinavia is not strictly a geographical term. It is used to designate culturally, linguistically, and historically similar countries, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. In a geographical sense, Scandinavia is a peninsula, and as such it includes mainland Norway, Sweden, and parts of Finland and Russia. But in a cultural sense, Scandinavia is often expanded to include the Faroe Islands, Iceland, the Åland Islands, Svalbard, and Greenland. Norway is part of this cultural and geographical region, and its early history is very connected to its neighboring countries. This is why when researching the earliest history of Norway, the best thing to do is look at the history of the whole of Scandinavia, both in the geographical and cultural sense. The prehistory of Scandinavia started more than 13,000 years ago at the very end of the last glacial period. Global warming started, the ice melted, and new lands for flora and fauna to thrive opened up. The first humans then came to live in the Scandinavian region and started their Stone Age culture. In Scandinavia, the Stone Age is divided into 3 phases: Old or Hunter Stone Age, Paleolithic period, Middle Stone Age, Mesolithic, and New or Farmer Stone Age, Neolithic period. The Stone Age in Scandinavia lasted from 13,000 to 1700 BCE. The Bronze Age lasted between 1700 and 500 BCE. The next was the Iron Age, which lasted from 500 BCE until the start of the Viking Age, approximately 750 CE. However, although this periodization is largely accepted for the whole of Scandinavia, it cannot be applied to the northern regions. There the climate was such that development was often halted, and some changes didn't appear at all. For example, the true Neolithic period never really arrived in the north, since agriculture was impossible due to permafrost. The first societies of Scandinavia, those belonging to the early Paleolithic, are almost invisible to archaeologists and history in general. They were hunters, and they inhabited mainly the western shores of the peninsula, where they had easy access to reindeer and seals. Their tools were made of stone, animal bones, and antlers, and they were scattered across the landscape. It is hard for scholars to determine what kind of social structure these early societies had, if they even had any. But with the Neolithic period came the first permanent settlements on the western shores, although they were very small. Several huts and burial places belonging to this period were discovered, as well as flint items, seashells, and fish bones, which points to a culture capable of utilizing resources from the sea. The first pottery appeared in the late Mesolithic period, but it became much more common in the Neolithic. In the Neolithic period, the societies of Scandinavia turned to farming. The first farms were established in inland Scandinavia, where the land was more fertile. Pastures for cattle were also more available there. This is also the period where the people started burying their dead in monumental tombs, which held tens, sometimes even hundreds of bodies. During the early Neolithic period, copper items appeared, and they became common later in this period. Although some houses and many tombs from the Neolithic period were preserved, especially in southern Scandinavia, not much is known about the society. However, with the start of the Bronze Age, this changed. The Bronze Age is best known for the usage of this metal, but it was also the first appearance of social structures. The tribes were led by chiefs who resided in large timber halls and were buried with their riches and weapons, many of which had their origins in other parts of Europe. The rest of the people were simple farmers living on scattered small farmsteads. The commoners were still buried together, but some prominent individuals and even whole families had special designated burial spaces within the common burial complex.